kick off. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest Lunchtime Bytes by the ICBE and the Business Excellence SkinNet. Today, we're joined by Miriam O'Connell from Mojo for Leaders. Miriam has extensive experience in organizational change and leadership, and she will share her insights into the tools, the thinking, and the mindset we need to be excellent at anything. And Miriam will present for 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A at the end. For questions and answers, please, if you submit them via the chat function on the screen, if you hover over your screen, the chat function should pop up. Everybody is muted on the call due to background noise, but if you hear background noise, please just check to make sure that you're muted yourself. And with no further ado, I'll hand you over to Miriam.
Thank you very much, Owen. And welcome everybody to today's lunchtime talk, Energise to Optimise, how to be excellent at anything. Before I kick off, I could say Owen introduced me there briefly, and just a little bit more about myself. My name is Miriam O'Connell, as he said. I'm a leadership and organisational development coach and consultant. A bit of a mouthful, but my work is all around consultancy and coaching, and it's all about helping people to be their best in the workplace. It's about bringing out the magic in people and organizations. And we do this through working with the leaders and working with the individuals and the organizations, helping them to be performing at their best, to really find out who they are, where they shine, and how to turn up at work, shine, as that best person as much as possible. Work we're very passionate about and that we love. Today, I can see, if I can get this moving on for me, here we go. Today, I'm sure you're intrigued by the title of today's talk, Energise to Optimise, how to be excellent at anything. It's actually based on the work of Tony Schwartz and Jean Gomez in this book, Be Excellent at Anything. And, really, we're going to be sharing the concepts that he came up with. As I mentioned, Owen and myself were talking just a few minutes ago. A lot of this is kind of getting back to common sense, and all the best ideas are very often getting back to common sense basics that we know. But this book used to be called The Way We're Working Isn't Working. And I think that's a good segue into the talk, because I think it's fair to say that today, the way we're working isn't working. On a personal level, I think you'll find that we're working way longer hours than we ever worked before. We're actually kind of finding ourselves sitting in cars, commuting an awful lot more. Some of us are commuting an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. We're actually bringing work home with us. Technology, which we thought would free us up, is actually making us more and more connected and tied to work rather than free from work. I'm sure many of you who are working multinationals that have meetings across time zones are finding yourselves doing this at home early in the mornings or late at night. And all of this, of course, means we have less and less time for the basics, like eating healthy, exercising, getting good sleep, indulging in our passions and our hobbies, and most importantly, getting to spend time with the people that we love most, the people that are most important to us. And of course, at an organizational level, all of this has a toll as well. Studies are consistently showing us that in general, only 30% of our workforce is actively engaged. 50% tend to be partially unengaged, and 20% actively disengaged. And I think we all know that this has a cost. It's in terms of poor productivity, poor performance, and high turnover, all of things which affect the sustained success of any organization and the bottom line. So what's the solution to this? Well, according to Tony Schwartz, what we've got to do is bust this myth that we're meant to operate like computers at high speeds continuously for long periods of time. And very much that's the way a lot of us have been trying to work for a number of years now. And instead of this myth, what we do is we embrace the reality that human beings are actually, in fact, designed to pulse between spending and renewing energy. And Tony Schwartz, he compares energy to our kind of core needs. And he presents these core needs to us like it's in something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the same but a little bit different. And at the bottom of this is what he calls our survival, our basic needs that we need to actually, eat and breathe, and sort of very basic needs. But above that, we have what he calls our sustainability, or our body needs. And he equates this to physical energy. And this is all about being able to regularly renew and take care of ourselves so that you're healthy and you're fit and you're resilient. And above that energy, he puts emotional energy. And this is about our security needs, about feeling appreciated and feeling cared for and being valued for who you are and what you can do. And the energy that he would put above that in the hierarchy would be mental energy. And that's about the need for self-expression, the need to be able to actually perform at our best, to express my unique skills and talents. And the highest energy then is spiritual energy. And this is about significance. This is about really what I stand for and what I believe in, having a sense of purpose in my life and in my work. It's what gives me a sense of meaning. And before I go ahead, what I'm going to invite you to do is to maybe take pen and paper if you have it. Hopefully you all have a bit of pen and paper, and draw on it this grid, because what I'm hoping to do today for you is to start you off on developing your own personal energy and your renewal plan. Because I think it's fair to say that we're very good at spending all of these energies, but what Tony Schwartz is telling us that we should be doing is learning how to pulse between renewing and spending. So where we really need to focus on is how to renew these energies. So if you have these kind of 4 grids drawn on your piece of paper, we'll move on and we'll start looking at these energies in a little bit more detail. So the first energy is your physical energy. It's about renewal and it's about sustainability. And Tony Schwartz presents the energies, each of the energies to us in a form of quadrants. And on the left-hand side, you'll see is kind of the dysfunctional. There's the 2 quadrants on the left-hand side tend to be the dysfunctional quadrants, and the quadrants over here on the right-hand side tend to be the healthy quadrants. So for our physical energy, he talks about being in the Energise zone or being in the chill zone. That these are the places that we need to pulse between in order to be actually healthy and resilient. And the Energise zone, as you can see, is all about what we eat. It's about movement and exercise. It's about playing and laughing, all of the things that we know. We already know these things energize us and are good for us. And then in terms of the renewal, what we need to do to kind of deeply recover, it's about taking regular breaks. It's about napping. It's about meditation, sleeping, taking holidays. And when we're dysfunctional, we tend to be over in the spike zone and the numb zone. And unfortunately, this is becoming far too familiar to us nowadays, where we're relying on caffeine and sugar and the white sugars and white flours, the simple carbohydrates to keep us going. And then, to kind of renew or to come down, we're using things like alcohol, overeating, television, from things like that for most of us. And then for some of us, we may be having to use sleeping pills and that in order to get some rest. And where this really started coming to light first for Tony Schwartz was this study here by Anders Ericsson, where they actually studied the Berlin Music Academy. And they took 30 students, and the professors there could actually, identify at a very early stage what students that would fall into the categories of what they would call best, good, and then there was music teachers. And the best would be the ones who became soloists. And then the good students would be the ones who would actually get to perform in orchestras, and then the remainder would be music teachers. And what they did is they actually studied behaviors and practices of these students over a period of time. And what they found is that in the best and the good, they found that they actually tended to practice 24 hours a week on average. But that practice was broken down into 3.5 hours per day, but in 90-minute bursts, and that they actually took renewal breaks between each session. And they tended to practice most in the morning, so they were quite conscious about when they practiced and how they practiced. And they actually rated this activity as the #1 most important activity that they did. But if you contrast that with the music teachers, they practice on average 9 hours per week. But whereas it averaged 1.4 hours per day, there was no fixed schedule. It could be 6 hours in one day and 3 hours in another day. And very often they practice in the afternoons. And then the second most important activity they found was sleep. And the people who were at the top of their performance level were getting an average 8.6 hours sleep per night. And they actually used to use daytime naps as well. whereas the music teachers average 7.8 hours sleep a night. And I actually think 7.8 hours sleep is probably even still more than most of us are giving ourselves a night at the moment, you know. So originally, the likes of Malcolm Gladwell and that thought that the message from this was that you have to practice harder and work harder in order to be at your best. But the likes of Tony Schwartz are suggesting that it's not just that. It's that great performers work more intensely than most of us, but recover more deeply. So I'm going to invite you now to take a minute and go to your little energy renewal plan and maybe answer the question for yourself: how can I sustain myself better? How can I pulse better between spending this energy and renewal? I think it's fair to say that most of us already know the answers to a lot of these questions because they are common sense, but it's to remind us to practice them again, you know. Okay, I'm sure you'll be able to come back and fill out more in this later. So the next energy then is our emotional energy. This is actually all about, you know, our need for security, and it's about, you know, feeling appreciated and feeling, you know, feeling valued in our work. And again, you can see the 4 zones here. And the 4 zones there, like the 2 zones that are on the left-hand side, the ones where we don't want to be, are the survival zone and the burnout zone. And where we really want to be is in the performance and the renewal zone. And there you can see in the performance zone, we tend to feel, you know, if you ask people to think back about what they felt like when they're performing at their best, they'll invariably report that they feel calm and they feel optimistic. They felt challenged. They felt engaged and invigorated. It's almost like that concept of flow that we come across so often now. And then in the renewal zone, it's a kind of a carefree, peaceful. It's almost like that kind of lovely, kind of relaxed feeling you get after a good day's work where you've been achieving. That's sort of like how you feel in the renewal zone. But unfortunately, more often than not, we're finding ourselves in the survival zone and the burnt out zone. And the survival zone is where we're impatient and irritable and defensive and fearful. And in the burnout zone, we're exhausted, depressed, and sad and empty, you know. And unfortunately, today, it's becoming more and more acceptable to find ourselves in the survival zone. And when we're in the survival zone, you know, the amygdala is kicking in, and we find ourselves more and more in fight or flight mode. And that, when you think about that, think about what that is doing to you, how it's not that healthy to be living there in that space, but also what impact is it having on the people you're working with and on the people that you're leading. So again, I'm going to invite you to kind of think about, how can I manage my fear better? And the reason I'm using that question is because I think it's generally fear that puts us into the survival and the burnt out zone. Because it's fear of failure, it's fear of dropping the ball, it's fear of not being accepted for who you are, or it's fear of not being good enough. These are the sort of things that consistently drive us and push us into that survival or burnout zone. So how can I manage my fear better? Okay. Again, I'm sure you'll be able to come back to this afterwards, you know, but you might have a few ideas that you can write down there. So our next energy is our mental energy. And our mental energy is all about focus. It's about our quality of attention and quality of focus. And it's, you know, it's really what we need in order to be able to perform and be at our best. And he describes sort of 4 qualities of focus, you know, where we have narrow and wide focus, or where we can be distracted or absorbed. And whether our focus is narrow or wide, you know, is actually, that's quite okay. It's the quality of whether it's distracted or absorbed is where it actually kind of gets into trouble. So when we have a narrow and absorbed focus, we're in this tactical zone. We're in this logical and analytical, task-orientated, you know, and precise, methodical zone. A good place to be in for the appropriate tasks. But then if we bring our focus into a wide perspective, then we're kind of moving into the big picture zone. And when we're in here, we're more intuitive and we're more open-minded. And it's where we're kind of synergistic and we're thinking outside the box and we're imaginative, playful. Great place to be in when you're trying to come up with a vision or when you're trying to come up with maybe brainstorming, big picture thinking. And, it's a place that we need to get into every so often in our workplace. However, when we're in this distracted place, we tend to kind of get into a reactive zone, which is where our thinking is shallow and inefficient, it's short-sighted. And if we're in that sort of wide kind of focus, it's when we're in scattered zone. And that's when we're zoned out and we're maybe overwhelmed and we're spacey and totally ineffective really in this zone. And the big learning from this is that as human beings, we are not designed to multitask. It's a myth that even women can multitask, I'm afraid. We're not designed to multitask at all. But unfortunately, today, we're more and more expected to do this, and we're trying to do it. And we're splitting our attention and focus all the time. I mean, how many of us are guilty of actually having maybe 5 or 10 windows open on our laptop at any given time? How often are we getting distracted by emails coming in or by messages pinging? And how many times are we trying to get more than one job done at the same time? And research is showing us that it's not effective, it's not working. So we really need to begin working to give ourselves kind of more quality focused attention. So the question here that I'd like you to look at is, how can I nurture and protect my focus and attention? So what are the things that I can do to give myself more quality time to spend on the tasks that are important? Okay. And the final energy then is the spiritual energy. And this is about significance. This is about who am I and what is it that I want to do or who is it I want to be. And, here, as you see, there's no list of behaviors or qualities that they're presenting to us because it's too subjective. And for everybody, it means different things. And there's no way you can say that one person is right in believing that these values are important or they're wrong. We all have to come to our own values. So what they're offering to us is this idea that we're either value adding and value driven, or else we're value depleting and value free. And it's really important that we actually try and find out and make clear what our values are for us, and to find ways to actually live those values in our work and in our general lives, and to actually kind of connect to a sense of purpose and meaning in our work. So Naichi tells us that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And this is so true. Like, if you can connect to a strong sense of purpose in what you're doing and how you're living your life, it actually, research has shown that you'll tend to be far more content and happy, but you'll also be far more effective and productive and impactful. So answering these kind of important questions here, these kind of basic questions for life, like who are you and what do you stand for and what is it that you really want and what is it that you really want to do with your life. It really is worthwhile spending time answering these questions, because if you feel connected to this, if you feel connected to this sense of purpose, you'll be far more successful in your endeavors, and you'll actually be far more contented with your life and far more resilient as well in your life. So I'm going to invite you to can think for yourself, what is my North Star, or what is my sense of purpose? This is sort of question that you don't answer in 1 minute or 5 minutes. Like, you're going to have to keep maybe coming back. And then in our work in Mojo for Leaders, we actually spend weeks and months with leaders working on this. And they all report that once they find this, once they connect to this, it actually powers them on so much more. It becomes a sense of direction for them, and it also becomes a source of energy and a source of power for them. So it's very, very important. So just as it's important to kind of have an energy renewal plan for ourselves, and like I say, I'd invite you to come back and kind of look at this and maybe answer each of these questions in a little bit more detail when you have more time. But you can also look at an energy renewal plan for an organization. And by, to do that, you could actually explore these questions. So from a physical point of view, how can we create an organizational culture that pulses? And, the things there that you can introduce are things like making it okay to get up and take breaks from the desk and walk around. Making it okay to kind of work in sort of short bursts of 90 minutes and then take a break. Maybe having healthy eating options in your canteen. And it's also, sort of introducing, some companies might have the budget to actually have sort of fitness classes or gym membership or all that. And it's all about kind of looking after the physical sustainability and resilience of your employees. And from the emotional level, it's all about how can we actually make sure our people feel motivated and appreciated. And this isn't about financial rewards. This is recognition, kind of thanking them for a job well done or pointing out where they've actually done something really well. It's actually learning more about the people and listening to them so that they feel respected and valued, and that their voices get heard and appreciated. And all of those allow people show up fully in work and fully engage at work. And in my own experience, I think that one of the most powerful things you can do for people is let them feel heard. Make sure they feel heard. When they feel heard, they can engage fully. From the mental energy point of view, so how can we allow our people to do their best thinking? Many offices now are set up, with open plan offices, and that doesn't always work for concentration levels and for focus and attention. So maybe there's ways you can give space over for deep work, for work that requires more concentration. And maybe just make it okay for people to wear headphones, and if it's the only option for tuning out the noise around them. But it's also about, making sure that they don't have to work over long hours, that they can take breaks, because you'll find that helping the physical energy will help the emotional energy, will help the mental energy. They all feed into each other. So it's like, make it okay for people to switch off at 5 or 6 o'clock. Maybe make a rule that people can't be contacted at home or out of hours. So to allow people that time to really renew and rest when they're not in the office or in the workplace. And finally, how can we help our employees feel connected to a sense of purpose? And this is all about maybe making your corporate values or your organizational values alive and living. How can you make sure that they're actually really, really lived and show up in the workplace? Maybe it's highlighting when you see somebody actually being a good example of what your corporate values are all about, maybe highlighting that a bit more. Corporate social responsibility is a really good way of actually connecting people to a sense of purpose in their organization, or getting involved in their local community. It makes people feel proud, and it makes people feel belong to, what they want to belong to the organization that they work for. So that's kind of the gist of the kind of message from Tony Schwartz. Is very, very quick, very high level. There's, but I'm sure you'll agree that, if you spend a little bit of time, you'll find that you can dig an awful lot more deeper in all of the 4 energy quadrants. So I suppose at this stage, Owen, we'll see if there's any questions maybe. Or do you want to go to the last?
Yeah, if you go to the last slide.
There you go.
Yeah, if you go just one more. So while there's a few questions that have come in, but just in case there's any more from people, if they want to submit them via the chat function, just to let you know that the ICBE National Conference is taking place this year in Johnson Estate in Enfield. The theme of this year is the Pathway to Global Excellence, and we have a keynote address from Terence Mallory, who is an expert in disruption, and Anton Savage will MC the event. And we have 5 really good examples of Irish organizations based in Ireland that have set up centres of excellence. So we'll have lots of pragmatic learnings. And it's April the 4th, and full details on icbe.ie. So maybe just kick off the questions, because I think we've only about 5 minutes for them. From going through your slides, one question is, does a lot of the recovery take place outside of work? And if so, can a company assist, or does it have a role in aiding recovery? And I think you covered a little bit of it, in that some recovery can take place in the workplace as well as at home.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't all have to take place outside of the workplace. Is I think is the first answer to it. if you have a workspace where you have areas where you can go out and walk around, take maybe 5-10 minute walks during the day, then you can encourage people to do that. And actually, I think one of the most important things, and it came up there at the end, and I forgot to actually mention it, is leaders need to model the way. So by leaders actually, say something simple like that, you want to make it okay to get up and take a walk for 5 minutes in your workplace. The way to influence the culture to make it acceptable to do that is for leaders to do it. So, leaders need to not be contacting people outside, of 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. The idea of sending email at midnight or 11 o'clock or whatever, the way to stop it is for leaders to stop doing it. If leaders are sending the emails, people will kind of feel, well, that's what we need to do in order to be accepted and rewarded and promoted or whatever in this organization. So it's to actually model the way, and both inside and outside of the work hours, really.
There's another question just around, and it's from a managerial point of view. So how can a manager ascertain what zone an employee is in? And is it survey based? Is it observation based? Or do you need to know what zone your employee is in? Or different employees, and especially if you've got quite a lot of employees.
Yeah, I think some of it can be observation based. I mean, you're going to notice if if people are irritable, if people are not actually focused on their work too well, or if people are I suppose kind of short-tempered and all that. When they're in that sort of survival zone, or if they're in their burnout zone, you're going to be able to observe that yourself. I think for some of the other stuff is probably survey based. And it's, you can do the standard sort of engagement surveys, but also if you have time as a manager, it's asking good questions. That's in the one-to-one, it's maybe asking somebody, well, how are you getting on? How are things for you at work? And then kind of giving them a good listening to when it comes to them giving the answer. I think very often we can be afraid to ask those questions. I was actually coaching a leader only just yesterday, and he told me that he used to feel embarrassed asking those kind of soft questions, and now that he has kind of gotten used to the idea that it's okay, he started asking more of them, and he has found it has made such a difference to his relationship with his employees, and to actually how they're now engaging and performing and collaborating together in that. So it pays back. It pays back,
And just one final question. Which is, you spoke a little bit about the North Star and sense of purpose, and how long it takes to actually to get to that point where you know what yours is. Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples of people's North Stars or sense of purpose that might kind of give us a bit of a head start on that one?
But I suppose I think for us in Mojo for Leaders, and my own personal one is to bring out the magic in people and in organizations, and that's something that I spent months fine-tuning. I knew that my work was all about people, and I knew the feeling I got when I saw it working, and I know, like, when you see a group of people collaborating together, and when you see somebody shine and flourish and all that, it gives me such a buzz in my work, and I call it magic. It's like when people start achieving things they never thought possible before. That to me is magic. So for me, my North Star is, if my work is helping me bring out magic in people and organizations, then I know I'm on the right track, and it helps me make the right decisions. My colleague Betty, hers is really to help people be their best selves. And again, like, we're coaches and organization consultants, so it makes sense, that they're our North Stars, or they're our what we call leadership intentions. And I remember we were working with a leader one time, and she's changed it since. And this is the thing, it can change, it can grow and it can change. But she found she was micromanaging, and she actually started using the one of let go and let grow for a couple of months, until that actually started becoming no longer relevant for her. But it was this idea of letting go and letting her people grow, and that worked so well for her for a number of months. And then she actually kind of got a more appropriate one to follow from there on. But they're just some examples, for leadership ones, but for a lot of people, it might be around whatever it is your organization. It might be around sustainability. It might be around people. It might be around making a difference in the marketplace. It might be around making a difference to society, or whatever, But it's to kind of play with it and keep testing it until it feels right. We talk about it feeling right at a head, a heart, and a gut level.
Yeah. So it's like a personal mission statement, but with the head, heart, and
exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. We just reached 1:30. Miriam, thank you very much for that. There was some really interesting frameworks, and I've kind of jotted out my own. I need to go back and revisit the slides and fill it out properly. And we will upload the recording of today's webinar, along with slides and with a blog post on the ICBE website a little bit later on. If you have any comments, we'd love to hear them. And I'd just like to finish up by thanking Miriam. Miriam, thank you very much.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.